Welcome to Resonance, podcast by Quetzal y Andrade, where we talk about bass, effects, and live things. Well, 2026 NAMM just occurred. It's already over. Yes, I was there for the 3 days, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and it was amazing. It was definitely draining, but definitely an experience that I will never forget. It was something new in the sense that even though this was my third NAMM, I definitely experienced it differently than the other two times. The very first year that I went to NAMM was 2018, and I had just gotten out of the hospital. I went in 2017 Christmas Day and came out 9 days later after the new year in January and had lost 30 pounds. I was definitely still coughing blood. If you don't know what valley fever is, that's what did me in, right? I was definitely in a much weaker state and struggling, right, to get healthy again. So I wasn't even sure that in 2018 I was going to make it to NAMM, right, at the end of the month. And as a result, my wife and year and a half old son accompanied me to my very first NAMM show, and I'm grateful for that. It was definitely a cool little family bonding experience where my 1.5-year old oldest son Mateo, he was able to rock out in his little Red Hot Chili Peppers shirt at NAMM. He didn't even realize at the time like how cool that was. It's just like I'm here with my family, here with my dad. Just another day at the office, just another music thing that I am by no choice a part of, right? And so he was so cool with his little headphones and little drumsticks, just parading around and kind of stealing the show at times at certain points in the convention center. So because I was in a weaker state, my family accompanied me really to make sure that if there was something that they needed to help me with, right, just to be available. And again, just to have that moral support was huge. So super blessed to have had that 2-day NAMM experience where I was not there all day, either day. Neither was my family, right? We went in for some hours on both days and got out. It was a good time. I had a blast. But then 2 years later, I ended up going to NAMM just for a few hours because and I say we, this band that I was performing with, the Patrick Contreras band, was performing somewhere near the area, right? And so we were like, well, we got some time to kill. If we get there early enough, we can spend some hours at NAMM and just hang out and then go do the show. So sure enough, I went to NAMM a second time in 2020. Yes, the beginning of the pandemic, essentially, or right before the pandemic, really put us in a different situation. But I was able to take my bass. I was flying under the MTD flag at the time, and since I was doing the gig, I already had my instrument, and so I took my bass in this second NAMM, and it was cool because it was a conversation piece. I was able to jam out with other musicians and try different amps, and it was a unique situation where taking my instrument had not been the previous experience. But again, only for a few hours, and then boom, it's showtime. Let's go do the gig. So this year, 2026, I was able to go for 3 days. I went by myself, no family. I didn't take my instrument, which was a slight regret, but that also gave me the liberty to navigate NAMM a little more quickly, right? Not having to lug an instrument. Not that my current bass is crazy heavy or anything. In fact, it's the contrary, right? It's 7.5 pounds. It's a sweet instrument. Anyway, before I get on how cool my instrument is, back to NAMM. I really enjoyed this NAMM because I was there for 3 days, and as I was able to enjoy the experience in three different scenarios. One, where I was able to go and experience booths and a million different basses by myself, just, free reign, right? The second phase or scenario is the fact that I was able to connect with people from, all over that I've been able to connect with via the internet or social media. And so in that regard, being able to meet people in person is very humbling. It's a very cool experience to just be like, man, I liked you online. You were cool online. You were cool on social media, and now you're a real person, and we can connect and just propel positive vibes all the more here at the NAMM show, which I guess is why we're all there, right? We're all trying to gain something positive from that experience, that whole music scenario. And thirdly, the last situation or scenario was being able to experience NAMM with local friends that were also from my hometown that were able to go to NAMM and connect with me at some point, hang out, have dinner, have lunch, or whatever, and just experience life and music together, in a different music situation, right? NAMM is not an everyday thing. It was definitely something where, no, we're not on this gig together. In fact, we're not. There is no gig for 3 days that we're on, but we're hanging out and having a good time. And yes, music is a heavy focus in spite of our inability to be the headliner of some gig or performing at any given place, right? Down at NAMM. So yes, I had a great time. I played so many basses, and at the end of the day, it really affirmed or reaffirmed, excuse me, that there are certain bass specs that I just have to really respect if I care to purchase another instrument. If I really feel like I'm gonna play the instrument ultimately and play it for a significant amount of time, there's just no way for me to go ahead and say yes. If I buy a standard bass, a standard a standard excuse me, a standard 34-inch scale bass, that I'm really going to give it the time of day. I love my short scale bass or medium scale bass. I'm not sure where it falls under, other than it's a 32-inch scale bass. That is home for me. There's no dispute. I definitely reaffirmed that all the more concretely at NAMM this year after trying tons of basses, most of which were 34-inch scale, a few 35-inch scale basses, and definitely when I went to the S. Martin booth, where there are plenty of 32-inch scale basses, that is where I felt the most home. That's where I felt the most comfortable in playing and just overall feel, right? There were some amazing instruments at NAMM this year that they were just too heavy. Like, even if they felt good and sounded great, ultimately on a shoulder, they were going to be way too heavy for me. So there was no consideration on buying any of those instruments. Anyway, I was already in the works of ordering a new custom build by S. Martin as a result of me needing something, again, 32-inch scale, a little bit lighter than my anticipated bass that I had previously ordered. And so it was one of those things where, again, reaffirming what I thought I knew was an important takeaway from NAMM. I am going to custom order a bass, and I believe I'm going to actually order it as a 33-inch scale bass. Because of the way the body is, it's a little different, and I am going to go from a 17 millimeter to a 17.5 millimeter string spacing, just slightly bigger spacing and scaling. Nothing crazy, nothing standard. Even 18 would be too wide at this point for me to consider, and so I really feel that these specs are like the higher end specs. And again, the 32 and 17 millimeter string spacing is the lowest I would go, or the smallest, the shortest. So again, the reason for that, I feel that when I stand up, having a little bit more length to the neck is actually a slightly better thing for me with how I play. And again, when I'm sitting, definitely the short scale bass, sitting in that more classical style position, is more conducive for me to reach all points of the neck more comfortably with the way that I'm playing and or recording. So what else? Okay, so man, there were so many cool basses, and again, I'm gravitating towards headless basses, within the last year or so. So there was such a cool bass made by a Scottish luthier, and good Lord, it was just so heavy. It was unbelievably heavy, but it sounded great, looked great, and I immediately knew it wasn't for me, right? Even if I thought, oh, this is cool, I would possibly consider. Nope, I'm sorry. Like for me, I'm getting older. I'll be 40 in April, and so one of the considerations is just my body, right? Like being real with the fact that I'm not as young as I used to be. I'm not in my 20s where, hey, I'm getting this cool bass. It sounds awesome, looks great. Who cares what it weighs? I'm going to be playing it for 3 hours and I'm not going to, cry if my shoulder is hating me by the end of the gig. Now it's like, after, 5, 10 minutes, you realize quickly I'm either a fan of this bass or I'm not, right? As far as its weight goes. So definitely, weight is a heavy consideration. I'm thinking anywhere from 7.5 with like my current bass to 8 is my threshold on bass weight. It's just one of those things where I'm not going to try to be prideful, and I'm definitely not going to hit the gym and trying to get, all the more resilient to be able to juggle a base that's significantly over 8 pounds. Like anything 9.5 to 10, definitely out of the question. It would take a lot for me to consider a 9 pound base. So you can see where I'm at with regards to base weight and the fact that this whole NAMM experience has, again, reaffirmed my love for light basses, short scale basses, and headless at that, right? So regarding the headless and the custom order that I am going to have made, I tried two different S Martin basses that I was like, man, if I can get them to both be one bass, that would be the ultimate new tool for me. And again, love my current S Martin bass, the hollow body Concert 32, as is. I wouldn't change a thing about it. It's an entity that to me has my respect, love, and again, it's gonna be one of those relics I really feel that is never gonna get sold because it's so versatile, so light, and it's aesthetically pleasing, definitely too. But again, moving on to the combination of the new bass build, the new headless 6 string bass that I'm going to have S Martin make. It came about from playing a particular model in white that was at NAMM. I don't remember the model, but the neck felt amazing. It had bird's eye maple fretboard or fingerboard, I believe a type of maple neck as well, and just the way it was built and felt, and again, just resonated under the fingers was amazing. And so to me, I was like, I gotta have a bass with this kind of neck. Yes, it was 32-inch scale bass, but again, I'm gonna push that just a little further as a 33 with a custom build, and have that neck concept with block fret markers in black on a Freedom model bass. So I did try a Freedom bass, love the aesthetics, love the overall feel of it, and it was a 16.5 millimeter string spacing bass. So for me, that was just a little tight coming up from my 17 millimeter bass here at home as my go-to. So for me, I did try that white S Martin that was at 18 millimeter string spacing. And even though I love the neck, I felt like that string spacing was just a little bit wide. And that being 18 millimeter, that was like, okay, have a 17, 18's wide, 17.5, definitely going to be my ideal spec for the largest bass that I would ever juggle, right, comfortably. And in a more like standing live situation. That's where this instrument is ultimately going to be played, more for the standing situations, cover band, heavy, loud gig use, as opposed to my hollow body. Okay, that's the vision. And so I am going to get it all in white because I felt like that finish spoke to me. I always wear black. I generally wear black. So having that white instrument will contrast nicely, I think. As I've taken some photos with my white P bass here at home, I feel like aesthetically it sure maybe complements my attire, but likewise the instrument pops out in a more strong manner, right, in a nice way. So, and I like black and white photos, so maybe with that in mind, I can definitely take more black and white photos, and things will contrast all the more nicely too. So there's that. Not a photographer, but hey, throwing that in. Yeah, so the plan is black inlays on the fretboard, and then a white finger ramp between the two black pickups, which those pickups sounded great on that white S Martin at NAMM. I was like, yeah, I gotta have these pickups, finger ramp, that specific spacing, bird's eye maple fretboard, and again, 33-inch scale bass, 17.5 millimeter string spacing. I already know it, even if it's like a little heavier than 7.5, pushing that 8 mark just because of the extra inch in length, it's not going to make or break me. I'm going to definitely be about this. I can already see it pretty much completed in my head, how it'll look. So there's that. I just can't wait till I get it, right? And be able to demo it for you guys, whether it's on Instagram, some videos, perhaps some original music, right? I can't stop. One album a month is my quota, and definitely about that creative momentum. So again, February 1st is Latidos album, which is album 15. Again, February 1st on all platforms. Latidos has a red album cover. Yeah, Valentine's Day's, on the rise, and love is in the air and all that. So again, as I mentioned before in a previous podcast, it will be a little bit more chill in the sense that there's no drum tracks. It's all going to be bass, and just bass, right? Whether there's one part, two parts, or some layers, it's all going to be strictly bass. And on the S Martin at that, right? It's my 32-inch hollow body instruments. So can't wait for you guys to check that out and see what you guys think. Now, speaking of what you guys think, I really do care, and am ever humbled when I do get some positive feedback. I went to NAMM, and there are some people I did not know or had met on social media before, but they came up to me and were like, "Hey, fan of your work, really love your original music. I think you're awesome, blah blah blah." And that to me is very humbling, right? That was something that never came about in the previous two NAMMs, right? And I definitely wasn't ready for that this NAMM, with the idea that I was just going in trying to soak up what was available at NAMM, instruments, booths, luthiers, other musicians, more than, hey, what can I give to others in regards to inspiration or anything else, right? Not that I'm ever holding that back or not willing to, but it was super cool to hear that from a few people, and just be like, yeah, well, I appreciate you, blah blah blah. Just if there was questions about the music or the gear, I was definitely up for full disclosures. So very cool, very humbled, and can't wait to keep composing, keep writing, keep recording, and hopefully, God willing, if I make it to next year's NAMM and there's some continued traction or interest in the music, then some more great interactions and dialogue, and perhaps demonstrations can be made, right, regarding the original music, the process, and again, ultimately to inspire anyone, right? I'm a music educator. I teach junior high music, and so that's a huge part of my life. That's part of my career, right? It's not just teaching music, but hopefully I'm inspiring students long term, right, to be creative, be expressive, whether it's through music or any other means. And yes, to continue music, right? Keep pushing their abilities, welcoming new musical challenges here and there, whether it's at the actual junior high or at the next level, at the high school and beyond. So very cool to consider that we all have the ability to inspire, right? If we find those opportunities, if we cultivate skills or opportunities that we have available to us, and then all of a sudden let others experience some of that, right? Let others witness some of that. They can go ahead and just take that and run, and hopefully into positive territory, of course. So let's see. Oh my goodness, so many great bass players were there. Obviously, Mohini Day, Victor Wooten, Hadrian Farrard, Bobby Lewis, other great musicians like Mateo Mancuso. One of my favorite performances that wasn't an official like performance on a larger stage or anything like that. It was just at a booth, and whether or not they were scheduled, I had no idea. But I happened to be walking by this guitar booth with my friends, and there's two Brazilian guitarists just going at it, right? Just shredding beautifully. One accompaniment, the other one soloing, and then they would trade. The other would do the accompaniment bass slash, chordal stuff, and then the other would take a solo. And just their rhythmic precision, their note choices, right? Just constantly just made me happy, right? And so after listening to them for 30 minutes, essentially, my friends were like, "Yeah, we could be here all day." Of course, they had to stop at some point, but it was one of those things where, to me, that was like where I'd want to be all day if I could. One of the guitarists was Isaac Negrene, and the other musician, I didn't catch the name. I believe a friend of mine sent me his IG, because I definitely wanted to follow them and check out their original music or any sort of album work that they have out there. So again, super wowed, not just by bass players, not just by Nathan East. Another, I didn't catch his. I don't know his name straight up, but I follow his Instagram. But he's from the Dominican Republic. We literally stood next to each other as we were watching Mohini Day, do her performance with her band at the Groove Gear booth. And so, again, a lot of great people from all over, and just being able to be inspired. I think it's worth the ticket, right? Some of us may say, "Well, I'll go if I get a free badge." And then you still spend on, lodging. You still spend on gas money or flights, depending where you're from. But I think some of us could spend all the money in the world on any given thing and not become inspired ultimately. And so if you did that thing, right? If you did the NAMM thing and you spent X amount of dollars and came out of there ultimately inspired to pick up your instrument, to play, practice, put some mileage in your studio, looking forward to trying something new, or sure, buying a new instrument, right? Then yeah, the inspiration can't have a price, right? You can find inspiration anywhere, but if you went and ultimately got that from NAMM, money well spent. Money well spent. I don't know that I'll go back next year. I would like to say that I've built enough rapport with some individuals, right, S. Martin and the other great booths, that I'd care to go and interact and explore more, and be about the hang, right? Again, financially stable and financially viable needing to be a thing, right, in order for me to go. But hopefully it won't be 6 years between my next NAMM and this one. So we'll see. I am definitely considering budgeting. That way I can be a little bit more prepared and deliberate about, yes, next year is in order. It's a year from now, but I'm getting ready. I'm getting ready to be inspired yet further, and hopefully have more to offer and more willingness to receive anything and everything that NAMM can provide. Let's see. I'm getting a little tired here. You can obviously hear it, but NAMM was awesome. You already know, sensory overload, but it was good while it lasted. And oh, this is what I wanted to say. When I finally did come home, and when I finally did pick up my instrument later that night, it was amazing. It definitely reaffirmed that the bass that I'm playing is a keeper, and that I really do love S. Martin basses, and that I will be ordering a new custom build by them. Samuel, way cool guy, and again, obviously he's a guru in his creations, and the basses come out amazingly well, sound great, and so again, I props to him, and eager to strengthen that business relationship, but also looking forward to hopefully meeting him again, if not next year at NAMM, then at some point in the future. And again, just I would like to say straight up, go check out their basses, right? If you've ever been curious about short scale or medium scale basses, go check them out. And again, testament is checking out their Instagram, where a lot of monster musicians go out there and check them out and have great things to say about them. There's a couple individuals, one of which I can't remember his name, monster bass player, and the other, Evan Marion, right? He was there checking out the basses, definitely feeling them, right? So check out their instruments and give medium slash short scale basses a chance, right? I'm definitely about them and can't wait till my new build comes in. So enough about NAMM, enough about my next dream bass coming in. But again, just thank you for spending some time getting my overall, I guess, take of NAMM. Even though I should really spend a few more minutes talking about this. There was some live music going on at a particular venue. I'll say that. I don't want to put them on blast, and I don't want to put the band on blast or for you to deduct when and where. But my friends and I saw a particular band where once the band got off stage and the bass player took off his pedal board, I was shocked because during their set, the bass wasn't booming. It wasn't overly loud, or it didn't sound very audible or good to me. It was hard to hear. And yet the sound system that was there was a good size, right? Definitely had plenty of firepower. There was, a bass rig on stage, but even then, the bass was hard to hear. It didn't sound overly great. The bass player finally comes off stage, and I noticed that on his pedal board, he has a Noble DI. Now, I am not slamming Noble DI by any means, right? I don't have one. I've never played through one, so I cannot. I have nothing to say about the DI itself, other than it's amazing how so many people swear by that DI, how great it is, and blah blah blah, this and that. And again, reaffirming things that I think or believe is that no matter what gear you would have, a lot of times we're at the mercy of the sound guy. Again, Noble DI, it's very prestigious. It's an expensive unit. It's supposed to be quite coveted and desirable by bass players worldwide, and those that can get one do and swear it's the most amazing thing ever. But again, this bass DI to me was like, it wasn't apparent that it existed or was doing anything for this guy in this performance. And so I ended up kind of like frowning to myself a little bit, like, really? Why didn't it sound? And immediately, yeah, you're ultimately at the mercy of the sound guy. So don't forget, guys, that gear is great. Gear is something that we probably won't stop looking at or needing or wanting to explore. But even if you do have all the coolest gear, again, in certain situations, that may not translate perfectly well, right, with the room or the sound guy that is there, right? And so that was an unfortunate, I guess, taste in my mouth. I was like, oh man, I had this idea of Noble DIs, and like maybe someday I'll get one kind of thing. And then that kind of just reaffirmed that, hey, it's not always the gear, right? You can have the cool stuff and still not come through properly. So I don't know that I'll ever get one. They are pricey, and I feel like as long as my instrument cuts through, then I'll be good. But again, thank you for listening. If at some point I think of something else, I'll probably upload a new episode, even if it is still some NAMM 2026 follow-up, some last thoughts, then I might be missing. Again, great musicians were there, great hand, great products, amazing luthiers and tech people, and I'm glad to have experienced this on a different level than I had, like I mentioned, the other two times. And who knows, maybe NAMM number 4 experience will happen for me next year. And if not, then stay tuned for my original music, at least on all platforms up until then, right? So you guys take care, have a good one, and look forward to you again, online, Instagram. Please check out the original music, February 1st, new album, Latidos, and keep playing bass. Shred on. Peace.